I will, thank you. Um, so I will share my screen, which has the itinerary. Um, and we'll just go through all the interesting, amazing places we're going to be going to. And then take it, and then we'll pass it on to Sarah. Um, so the tour is intended for both quilters, but also just textile lovers, design aficionados, people who are interested in Japanese culture, and who want to experience Japan through a very intimate guided tour with a native Japanese speaker and an artist. This is the first time the museum is hosting a tour of this nature. However, Takako has led tours in Japan before. And so we're very fortunate that she has signed on to be one of the hosts this time. And Takako is also a very good friend of the museum. Um, we hope that it'll be a very friendly and very warm and welcoming group. And we're really looking forward to spending 2 weeks experiencing Japanese culture through her eyes and through Sarah's eyes. So it really is, we think, going to be a trip of the lifetime. It's really, Takako has planned an incredible itinerary with lots and lots of stuff to see. And we're going to go to 3 different cities. So it's really amazing. What's included is 13 nights in 4 and 5 star hotels. Breakfast is included at all the hotels. Um, and there's guided English speaking experiences and tours included. The tickets are included in the overall price. We also have chartered buses and the bullet train tickets between the cities. So that's also included in the overall cost. Takako, if I could uh, pass it over to you and maybe talk about day one. We're going to land in Tokyo, where we'll have a welcome dinner and spend our time at Hotel East 21, which Takako, if you wouldn't mind.
Yes. So I think most of us are, flying out from the US. So you're gonna lose a day when you fly over the Pacific. Um, Anyways, so it's gonna be the responsibility for the participants to purchase the airline tickets. And I'm recommending that you either fly into Haneda, Tokyo International. There's 2 locations, Haneda or Narita. Narita is outskirts of Tokyo. It's outside and it's farther, but Haneda is more accessible to downtown. So and it's more convenient. So if you fly into Haneda, that's what I would recommend. But you can just take a taxi outside the airport and then just drive over to the hotel that night. So we're going to, the very first activity on the first day is going to be the welcome dinner. We're going to meet at 7 o'clock. I already have the reservation made. So, we can just all meet and greet that day. And we'll just, so you can arrive on your own, you can check in, and then, we'll just meet for dinner. And we'll just go over the itinerary for the next day, and we can just talk about the details going forward. So
And then day two, we'll be at the hotel again, right?
yes, so when you first wake up, you can just get your breakfast, and we have a banquet room reserved in the hotel, and that's where we're going to have the first official meeting with Sarah. And that's where she's going to guide us in that beginning of the design journey. So So Sarah, would you like to talk about what you have plans for that at the first
Sure,
meeting?
sure. I put together a few slides that I'm going to share in a few minutes that are a little more detailed about why we're going to do what we're going to do, but I'll just say that I think that it will be a great opportunity. We're all going to be a little bit jet lagged and just getting our bearings. So I'm going to start out with a talk where I kind of try and get us oriented where we are in Japan and a little bit about Japanese history relative to some of the crafts and art things that we're going to focus on. One of my personal interests is really in the Mingei movement and the early 20th century, or the first half of the 20th century craft in Japan. I think that it really plays into my personal interest in quilt making because it was really a movement of folk artists and people that were um, trying to think about how folk art and traditional arts fit into modern culture. So we're gonna talk a lot about that, but I also want people to kind of get their hands into um, being active in making and thinking about making as artists or quilt makers or people who are just appreciators of art. So we're going to do a hands-on exercise that I'm going to put together that relates to what we're going to be seeing because our first visit of the trip is going to be to the Mingei Museum, the Japan Craft Museum, which is a museum that was founded by the founder of the Mingei movement, Shoji Hamada. And so we're going to have an opportunity to really see what this whole movement was all about in those artworks. So we're going to do something hands-on that relates to that. And then it's also going to be kind of a really nice icebreaker for everybody to spend some time getting to know each other in a more relaxed way. And then we'll go on to the museum and take a look and see what we see.
And we have a question that popped up. So the question is, would it be smart? So sorry, it's not about there, a little bit more about what Takako was saying. Would it be smart to arrive a day early?
Yes, probably so. And you're welcome. So in the past with other tours, some people have arrived maybe 2-3 days earlier to Tokyo just to get acclimated and then have their little downtime on their own. I know a couple of people have wanted to tour on their own, so they had arrived like 2 weeks prior. So it just all depends what your plans are, how much time you have, but it is not a bad idea to maybe get in 1 or 2 extra nights if you can do that. If I know ahead of time, I can contact the hotel and then add on your stay either before the retreat or after the retreat at the hotel that where we're going to be at. So I just need to know, and I'll be happy to make that arrangements for the participants. So
Now,
but there are people that just stayed or that came on the day of and they did just fine too. So it's just really up to what you would like to do. It's your personal preference.
So another one, is it possible to coordinate flights if flying in and out of Chicago?
That's going to be up to the individuals. So I am, yeah, we're not able to coordinate the flights.
I think so.
Everybody
We talked
has
about having a meeting though, right? As a group, once we finalize the registration, we'll meet at least once prior to the trip and people can get a chance to exchange emails or something if they want to make contact with each other and talk about that.
Yes.
Right.
So, so I think, it's almost 6 months before the trip. And for international flights, this is about the time that I'll be starting to look for my flights to Japan because it's a little bit cheaper than the very last minute, like let's say like April, when it's like a peak cherry blossom season. So once you are committed to the trip, it is my suggestion that you will go ahead and start looking for the flights. Now, and then after everybody makes their own arrangements, and when we have our meeting for the participants, and then at that point, if you happen to be like on the same flight, or arrival time is close to at Haneda, you can coordinate maybe a cab ride together to the hotel. So there are ways to connect, and then somehow like share the cost or share the trip together. I don't know if did I answer your question?
Yeah, I think we're gonna probably try to have a initial group meeting for all the registrants in early January. So we are gonna be sort of rolling that out fairly quickly. And hopefully, you guys can coordinate in terms of exchanging emails, etc.
Right. So I think once we have all the participants list, I think we can, we could share the emails.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So going back to the itinerary, so we're at day 2. So I don't have all the small things listed there. This is just like the rough itinerary, but of course, there's going to be like lunch or dinner included, and I don't have the restaurants all listed, but you can assume that where it says lunch or dinner included, then we'll be making the arrangements for you. So let's see. So after Sarah's design meeting, we'll have a little lunch at the hotel, and then we're going to hop on the bus, and then we're going to go to the Mingei, or the Japan Craft Museum. And then after that, we're going to do a workshop. And so katazome is the stencil dyeing. So we're going to go to this studio where they have all these, they have the workshop for us, and everybody's going to get a piece of cloth, and we will use 14 different katazome, the templates, and then we'll have the different layers of ink in different colors, and then we just keep layering the design onto the fabric. So at the end, when everything is done, we have this beautiful like a table center piece that we're going to make, and they'll hang it over this contraption, and then just roll into a steam bath area to set the color. So we get to watch the whole process. And so this is the studio where the artisan is actually making obi, or the Japanese kimono sash. So you get to observe his work too, and it's really fascinating. So I think you'll enjoy that. Should I go to day 3?
Sure, thank you.
Okay. So from the hotel, let's see, I believe this is Sunday. So we're gonna walk to the subway station from the hotel, and we're gonna hop on the subway, and then we're going to nearby shrine where they have the flea market. So there are many vendors that bring their things. Some of them have old Japanese textiles, some have ceramics, some have like antique artwork. So some of them sell foods. They're just really fun to walk around, and then you can maybe negotiate the price, and shop, and just to walk around the ground. So, and they have this in different parts of Japan throughout the city, and then they usually designate, okay, at this tempo we're going to have this antique market first, and then on the 15th of each month, So that's why these days are kind of the way it is. Because I had to kind of build the itinerary according to when the flea markets are happening. So this is one of the first ones that we're going to visit in Tokyo. And then after that, we're going to hop back on the subway, and then we're going to this Kagawa Edo Museum. So this is a kind of like an interactive museum, but all the buildings are set from like 1800s. So you can see firsthand how, folks like Japanese, like commoners, lived, how they lived and then did things maybe like 200 years ago. So it's very educational, and I think you'll find it interesting. And then after that, we're going to do something very modern, and we're going to go to another museum for digital art experience. And then we'll visit one of the landmarks in Tokyo, Tokyo Sky Tree. And we'll go up. Hopefully it'll be a nice clear day. And then if we're lucky, we can see throughout the city, and then maybe have a glimpse of Mount Fuji. And then we'll have a dinner at one of the restaurants at Skytree. Day 4. So this is going to be the day that we have a professional English speaking guide, and then so she's going to come along with us, and then we'll go to some of the famous sightseeing spots in Tokyo. And Meiji Jingu is the shrine, and then Asakusa is like an old town district where there's a famous temple. And Tsukiji is the it used to be a big, like a premier fish market, and the fish market has moved to another part of town, but the outer market remained. So when you walk through the outer market, they're just little shops of, like wholesalers. So if you're a cook and if you're looking for ingredients, you can just find just about anything there, from chopsticks to pots and pans to sea kelp, to make your stock. So and then they also have small restaurants. If you wanted to have sushi, you can stop there and then eat a really fresh fish that was just probably caught like a few hours before that. And then we're gonna make our way to Nippori Textile Town. This is, if you like fabric and it's like sewing notions, you will be in heaven. Because the whole street, I don't know how many, I have not counted how many shops are, but the whole street is just all fabric stores, and then buttons and notions and ribbons, and yeah, you can just go up and down. Anyway, you can just be there all day. So, for a tour like this, we needed to stop there. And after that, we're gonna go to Tokyo Station. We're gonna catch a bullet train to Kyoto. So Kyoto was an ancient capital city of Japan, and it was the capital for about like 1,000 years, and it has a very rich history. And there are so many old temples and shrines. And it's very, very different from Tokyo. So I think you'll enjoy the contrast there. And so we'll get settled in Kyoto for a few days. And so day 13, I'm sorry, day 5, we're going to do some sightseeing. And I have scheduled the Indigo Dine workshop in Kyoto and a brewery visit. It's just interesting to see how these artisans do things. So whether maybe you're not into like an Indigo Dine, but it's just fascinating to see how things are set up, and then how they you can watch the process. Maybe you're not a sake drinker, but it's interesting to visit the old establishment and then see how, they make sake. So that's some of the things that's included on the itinerary that day. And day 6, we're going to continue with the Kyoto sightseeing. So we're going to visit some of the major famous temples. And one of the things that I would like to do is to visit the thread factory. So if you do like any sort of like sashiko or like hand stitching embroidery, you might know the company Daruma brand. And so we're going to visit one of their factories. And then, so in the US, we have a big factory and you do everything from start to finish. But in Kyoto, it started out as, small businesses. So all the tasks are divided. So one house, maybe they will just sort the thread, and then the other one will dye the thread, and then next one, they will pack the thread. So this thread factory, all they do is just to have the thread brought in, and then they will dye the thread. So we get to watch the whole process, how they do that. So does anybody have any questions so far? No? Okay, then I'll just move on. So yeah, we're just going to continue with the tour, and then day 7. So this is the day that we would like to visit Kyoto National Museum. So you'll have time to, see their exhibits, and then also Kawai Kanjiro House. So this is one famous man that was involved in the Mingei movement. So we get to learn about him. And not too far from that area, we'll visit Kiyomizu Temple. And so in Kyoto, there's Kiyomizu Yaki, so there's Kiyomizu pottery. So you get to see, Kiyomizu potteries in that area. If you'd like to purchase them, you could. And let's see, so next day, we're gonna pack up, and then we're gonna go back to Tokyo. And okay, so Okadaya on day 8, and Nuno that are in red. These are 2 different fabric stores. So we could visit there. And we also are planning to meet with Kumiko Fujita. So she was a graphic designer who turned into a quilter. And so she has agreed to show us her quilts and then talk about her process of her quilt making. And so we'll get to visit with her. And then last time I talked to her, she was just finishing up her book. So she said they're going to be published in January. So I think it'll be, really fun to meet her. Day 9. So this is the day that we're going to hop on the bus, and then it's going to be a little bit of a bus ride, but we're going to go outside of Tokyo, and we're going to try to visit 2 different areas where they have different potteries. So one is in Mashiko, and then the other one is Kasama. So that's going to be our ceramic day. And day 10. So, okay, so this is another antique market day. And Oedo Antique Market is actually, it's huge. It's not too far from Tokyo Station, and there are like 200 vendors that come. So it's just fun to look, even if you decide not to buy anything, it's just really fascinating to see what people are selling. And then we have the optional, like free time, or we could go to Tokyo National Museum with Sarah. And day 11, we are going to hop on the bus, and then we're going to go outside Tokyo again, south this time. We're going to this bamboo workshop. So there's this group of people that are living in this outside of Tokyo, and then they're trying to protect the bamboo forest, and try to make make things with bamboo. So they're going to teach us how to manipulate the bamboo sticks and then make them into baskets. So that's the bamboo workshop day. And then next day, yes.
Takako, a quick question.
Yes.
In the antiques markets, negotiating is accepted, correct? Or is that not permitted?
So they will usually tell you what the prices are, and then if it's, let's say if it's like a teacup set, it has a price on it. Usually we don't really negotiate. You just pay the price. However, when it comes to like textiles, sometimes you might want to get like 5 different the Japanese boro, like the old textiles. So sometimes, like I would say, I realize that this piece is 3,000 yen, but if I get this, like, would you make the whole thing like 5,000 yen? And then so you can negotiate that way. If you're buying more, maybe they can lower the price a little bit, but you pay as is usually. Yeah, so yeah, I think, yeah, we don't negotiate too much. Yeah. Okay, so then day 12, we're going to hop on the bullet train again, and then we're going to go to Niigata. Oh, and then so I will talk about the okay, so Linda, you said to get cash or credit card. So many of the vendors, they are equipped so you can use that credit card. So, but Japan is still a cash society, so it's good to carry cash, exchange some money, and then have some cash on hand, because there are some small shops that they don't take credit cards, or they prefer cash because they don't want to pay for the credit card charges. But if you're trying to get around like in the subway or big department stores, credit cards are accepted. Okay, so when we get to Niigata, we are going to meet with Akiko Ike. So she does this big stitch fiber art work. We're going to her farmhouse and we're going to do a workshop with her. And then if you could scroll down to day 13, we're going to spend one evening in Niigata. We're going to stay overnight. And the next day, we're going to go to Niigata Ginka, which is Akiko's shop in town. And then we're also going to visit weaving factory run by Tachikawa's. So Mr. Tachikawa has this weaving business, and in Niigata region, it's called Kameda Stripes. And so he revived, he studied up on this Kameda-jima. That was the textile that they had maybe like 150 years ago. And he's been weaving like 35 years, like 40 years. So now he's the only one running the shop. He and his wife are doing this, but we'll visit his factory and he's gonna show us around how, you know, he does the weaving of the textiles. It's on the machine. And then we get to go to his little shop and then you can do more shopping. And Northern Cultural Museum was this huge farmhouse that this very wealthy family had, and it became a museum after the war. So you can visit this, you know, very nice Japanese home just to see how things were done, you know, back then. And then we will come back to Tokyo and we'll have a farewell dinner meeting with Sarah, and then the tour ends after the breakfast the next day. So that's just a very general overview of what you can expect for this trip. You'll have your own room, you know, unless you have a friend to visit, to travel with, and then you can have the double occupancy with a, you know, extra, like the single supplement charge.
Well, thank you, Takako. It sounds wonderful. Beverly has another question. How much time do we allow for traveling to and from the airport?
So that is a little tricky question. So, I mean, once the plane landed and then you know, you have to go through the customs and then clear the customs and immigration. And then if you have checked bag, you know, you have to wait for that to come out. And then you know, you clear the customs and then you will come out. And then you have to find the taxi and you get in line and then you make your way to the hotel. So if you are trying to arrive on the day of when we have the welcome dinner, you would want to arrive in Tokyo by like mid-afternoon, like a 2 or 3 o'clock arrival.
Just a quick question about our bags. Since we're going to be changing hotels a lot, are our bags being taken care of by the hotel staff, or are we responsible for getting them in the transportation?
Okay, so yes, that is a good question. So when we switch hotels, I'm going to let you know ahead of time, but a couple of days, we have this service, the domestic transportation service, where I'm gonna collect everybody's suitcases in the hotel lobby, and then they're gonna ship the suitcases to the next hotel. So we have a small backpack or small, like a duffel bag with like maybe 1 or 2 days worth of clothes. Because we're gonna ship the suitcase, we're gonna, you know, ship the rest of it. So we're gonna do that twice, from Tokyo to Kyoto and Kyoto back to Tokyo. So,
Okay.
yeah.
And are most of the hotels accessible with elevators? I mean, is there going to be a lot of climbing of steps? And I realize the museums and things like that, yeah, will be, but in terms of the hotels, are we going to have to climb a lot of steps, do you think?
No,
No, okay,
hotels are equipped with nice elevators,
okay,
yes. But, you know, when we get on the bus, there'll be some stairs. When
yeah,
we go to the subway, there
Yeah.
are some stairs.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then when we visit some Japanese homes that are old, you know, there'll be some steps.
Why don't we invite Sarah to do a little introduction of her work and how she's going to sort of facilitate our journey throughout the trip.
Sounds good. All right, let me share my screen. show, sorry. Takako, I'm so excited about what you've put together. We worked a bit together in terms of her graciously trying to integrate some of the things that I was specifically interested in and then expanding it. So it's going to be a lot of fun. I have never been to Japan. However, my family came from Japan. My grandparents, my father was born in the United States. So for me, this is going to be a bit of a pilgrimage trip, and I'm really excited, and I intend to stay on a few extra weeks and see some more things. But I feel like I've been leading up to this for a long time, and I have always integrated my appreciation for and my curiosity about Japanese art and craft into my own work. So when Takako approached me about being a part of this trip, I almost immediately had some very specific things that I wanted to think about. That said, I also want to mention that as a teacher, I always make a really deliberate effort to be very open-ended. I'm not interested in taking you all on a trip and telling you what you should take away from this trip. I want to talk to you about things that interest me, and I want to hear from you about what's interesting you. And I think that the best experience that we're all going to have is when we find a way that while we're traveling together, we are really active in thinking, interpreting, seeing, and filing stuff away to take home with us. And so whether you're a quilter, whether you're a fiber artist, whether you're just going as a tourist and not an artist at all, I think that the most important thing when you're taking a trip like this, which is a big deal, is to find ways to be really active in your experiencing in the moment. So that's what I'm hoping I can help facilitate. Again, without saying we're going to do this specific project and you're going to go home with this product from my teaching. It's not going to be like that. I want to get to know you, and I want to figure out what makes all of us tick and what we're all getting out of this. So there's going to be a lot of discussion. There's going to be a lot of participation. So these images really quick, I just threw up here because they're examples of some of the things that we are going to be experiencing on the trip. Two of the artists, the ceramic artists here are Shoji Hamada, who was one of the founders of the Mingei movement, and he had his potteries in Mashiko, and we are going to get the opportunity to visit Mashiko, see his actual kiln site, and learn about why he moved to Mashiko and what he took away from Mashiko as an artist, as a ceramic artist from the outside. It is still an operating pottery. His grandson now runs that pottery. In the lower right corner is a pot by Kanjiro Kawai, who is the one who we're going to visit his studio in Kyoto, also a member of the Mingei movement and one of Hamada's best friends. And he has I guess it's like frozen in time, his home that you visit, as well as it's kind of a museum because it has a lot of his own objects in there. And then there's still a kiln there as well to see. My husband is a ceramic artist, so we have spent many hours with him explaining to me the mechanics and the technology of firing. I'm not an expert, but I think I know more than I did a few months ago, and I think it's going to be really exciting to see what goes on. In the lower corner is a detail from one of the Chiku Chiku pieces of Akiko in Niigata. And this here in the center is a detail that I got off the web of Kumiko Fujita's, one of her quilt blocks. I think that book is out now, Takako, because I looked online and I saw that it's for sale. It might be pre-order, but it is for sale. And so she has a very modern take on quilt making and graphic design, but relating back to some traditional motifs and things like that. Basketry, I begged Takako to help me find a way to bring this into the itinerary because I'm really personally interested in my own quilt making in geometry and math. As Emily knows, she put me into an exhibit at the Wisconsin Museum of Math and Quilts. And I'm really fascinated by the geometry of basketry and how it works. But I'm really interested in the place we're going because they really have an environmental preservation, like an idea about the ecology of the place where they are and how to sustain that through using materials that are available in basketry. And then up in the upper right corner is an example of Serizawa, who is also one of the members of the Minge movement. He was a karazome artist who studied in Okinawa and made some of the things that inspire me the most about karazome and the Minge approach to making. I just wanted to show you guys because I think it's sometimes you hear all of these places. I've spent a lot of time going back and forth with maps as I've learned about this itinerary. So I just really quickly wanted to show you kind of the area that we're going to be covering relative to what we are going to be learning. So this is Niigata here. It says Ichigo, which I think my understanding, you can correct me, Takako, but I think that was like an earlier name for this area, or Niigata is part of it, according to things that I read online. Mashiko and Kasama are the two pottery places that we're going to be going. Tokyo, obviously, Kyoto, and Chiba, which is where we're doing basketry. It's sort of a suburb outskirts of Tokyo. This is a map of all sorts of crafts centers throughout Japan. So it's a way to sort of get an overview of how craft and art design are so integrated into the history of Japanese people. Just a little quick introduction to some of my work. This is a really old piece, but I just wanted to bring it up because I have been looking at Japanese textiles as long as I've been making quilts and thinking about them very specifically in terms of what they offer in design to me in my imagination. So this is an example. This kosore, I think, is in the Tokyo National Museum's collection. So I'm hopeful that we're going to see some pieces like this when we visit. I'm really inspired by the ways that the printing processes of Japanese textiles have influenced the design of Japanese objects like kimono. So when they do their printing, it's always on these long, narrow pieces of material. And so that sort of dictates how they create the patterns or how the patterns are made that cover the whole kimono or are broken down into smaller units. So I'm really very interested in different ways to think beyond the block when designing quilts. Another thing I wanted to mention is that when I make quilts, I always am looking at my environment for inspiration for my designs. And if I'm in Chicago, that means I'm maybe not looking at things like we're going to have the privilege of looking at on our trip. And so this is just an example of, these are concrete mixers here in Chicago. And I love the idea that in some of the ugliest sites, this sort of ripped up, earth and dirt and tarmac and all of that, you get these incredibly festive machines with these amazing motifs. And then you see that and you think, how can I think about that for design? And so I'm always kind of going back and forth between looking at the things in my environment and my world and thinking about ways to interpret and bring that back. So that's to the work that I'm making. So that's something that I think I'll be talking a lot with you about. Just what am I seeing? And I can't predict what that's going to be, but what am I seeing and how is that making me think about ways that I can break that down? I can record that, I can draw it, it'll turn into a quilt, who knows? Drawing has always been a really big part of my practice. And so one of my intentions is to try and be an active drawer when we're traveling, and talking to you about ways to do that. I'm going to encourage you guys to bring sketchbooks, but I realize that not everybody is a person who wants to draw. So we'll do some games that involve that, but it's not mandatory. Maybe using your camera is another way, or writing notes or other things, but these are exercises that keep you active when you're traveling and looking at things. When I was young, just in college and after grad school, I lived in Italy for a while. And this morning, I just pulled out some of my sketchbooks and was thinking about ways that those sketchbooks helped me understand the things that I was seeing. And I saw this one on top in particular really cracked me up because it was a visit to Siena. And I was doing all of these drawings in Siena. They have a huge cathedral that's entirely covered in stripes. And this is before I was a quilt maker, mind you. I was a painter in those days. I had come out of art school firmly believing I would paint in oils for the rest of my life. And I was doing all of these drawings of different combinations of stripes that I was seeing on the cathedral. And I wrote a little note here that said, realizing that layers of stripes make checkerboards. And it was like, oh my God, that's exactly what quilters do, right? We take rows of stripes, we cut them up, we repiece them together, and voila, a checkerboard. But it took me as a painter this trip to Italy to see something made of marble in architecture to start to understand that and bring it back into my own work, maybe 20 years later. You know, it was these connections. And that's what's exciting, I think, about travel, is that you have to go thinking in a very open-ended way, but at the same time, always kind of letting those things recycle in your head for the future. And so finally, I just wanted to show a little drawing that I did for an Instagram post about this trip. On the 24th of November, I posted this because Shoji Hamada, the potter that I showed you before, he uses a type of glaze which is typical of mashiko, and it's called kaki. Kaki is the word both actually in Italian and in Japanese for persimmons. And the glaze is named that for the color of the glaze. And I just so happened to have some kaki that I was waiting to ripen. And he said in his notes, Hamada did, that they were supposed to be the most beautiful on the 24th of November. So that was the day I decided to do some drawing and think about kaki. So I went from observing them to drawing them, painting them, you know, with somewhat level of realism, to then trying to think about what was the clearest version of their form, you know, not all wrinkled, not all bent, and then how to take that and turn that into design, which then I personally could transfer into a quilt design if I wanted to. Obviously, it's not quilt specific. Obviously, I don't know if I'll ever make that as a quilt, but for me, that's part of my process. So I wanted to kind of show that to you as an example of ways that we will be talking about what we see, thinking about what we see, and then hopefully processing what we see as a group. So that's what I put together for you all. Let me stop share. Any questions?
Do you have another question that came up? Do the days start at different times? Or is there a bit of free time each morning?
So it depends on the day. So in the morning, you know, you can just get up and then just get ready and have your own breakfast, or, you know, maybe 2 or 3 of you can get together and then have breakfast. But I will tell you ahead of time, you know, like the next day, what time we need to meet in the lobby for what activity, and then what you need to bring for that day. So, but usually it'll be, yeah, somewhere like 8 o'clock, 8:30 or 9 o'clock. departure.
Then one question that I can actually answer, I did post it in the chat. Somebody asked if visas were required for Japan. As of right now, US citizens do not require visas. I posted a link in the chat though, just so you can keep up to date in case they decide to make any changes. We're not anticipating any, but that's beyond our control. So if you aren't a US citizen though, the requirements are different. So we encourage you to check out what those are or might be for your unique situation.
One of the other questions was, do you have recommendations for books to prepare? And I'll just post one for textiles, Japanese textiles that I really enjoy. I'll just share that in the chat. And that's kind of more of a broad overview of textiles from Japan. It is a sort of a hefty price. So if you are close to the museum, we have a library here if you'd like to come look at it here. Maybe Sarah, you have some other suggestions for books?
You're
muted.
You're muted, Sarah.
Sorry about that. This is a book that I just happen to have sitting next to me. It's just called Japan, a Bilingual Atlas, and it has been indispensable as I've been learning and getting ready for this trip, but I plan to travel with this. It's great because it not only has very detailed maps, including transportation maps and all of that practical stuff, but at the back, it has specialized maps, including a map of craft sites, of pottery sites, of textile sites, of other things throughout Japan. So it's incredibly detailed, but it's also, it has this sort of specialization, which I think I'm going to be falling back on as I try and plan some of my own little journeys outside. So I really recommend that. As far as books relating to some of the other things that we're going to be doing, I mean, some of those names of the members of the Mingei movement have been sort of what I've come back on. So Yanagi wrote a book called The Unknown Craftsman, and I think that's a wonderful place to start if you're interested in really getting into sort of the philosophy of the Mingei movement. He was a Zen I think he was a Zen priest. He was definitely his philosophizing was influenced by his background in Zen. So he talks about everything from tea to pottery, and the relationship of Japanese crafts also to Korean and Chinese craft and so on. So that's definitely the starting point.
There are other questions? Yeah, we can certainly, so Beverly's asking if we can send names of books just for spelling help, and I'm sure we can put together an email of that for sure.
I'll put Hamada in the chat right now. Not Hamada, sorry. Yanagi.
So, if there are no other questions, we'll sort of close out this meeting. We are looking at either the first week in January or the third week in January to do a group, just a closed session for the people who have registered. So please stay tuned for that. And yeah, we hope that this provided a good information session for you and that you are, if you were on the fence, you could consider joining us on this trip. I think one of the nice things about this is that you're going to be led by two of the most wonderful people ever. So, Sarah and Takako are just lovely humans. And it'll be a really nice trip. So, yeah, Beverly.
I think I would like to find someone who might, because flying over to Japan is such a long trip. I know that Delta used to have a ticket where if you bought one seat, I think in business class, you could get one free, or one in first class, you get one free. And so if there was a companion ticket issues, it'd be fun to find somebody like that. So the sooner somebody wanted to, I will be checking that, but it would be nice to have some companion to be with too, to take advantage of that, if it still exists.
The perks on airlines that seem to shrink all the time, unfortunately, but that sounds like a really good one.
Yeah, Beverly, would you mind if I mean, we're gonna share a list probably very shortly. So, if you wanted to put your email in the chat now, you'd be welcome to
Glad to.
connect with other people.
Sure.
And I think we just have a few spots left. So I think, Beverly, that might have been you who asked that question. So we're hoping to get it filled before the end of the year. And I'll put myself out there. If anybody has more questions and they want to reach out to me directly, feel free. I have a website, or I'll put my email in the chat, and I'm happy to either answer or find out the answers for you about anything. I really, I do appreciate that this is a big decision, and it's not something that, you just do on a whim, like buy a pair of shoes. So hopefully we can answer anything that's making, it's part of your decision process.
I'm
Oh,
very,
and then, Emily, if I could just mention about food.
Yeah.
So, I guess part of the cultural experience is that, to be able to eat different kinds of foods and, experience them. And I'm also mindful that, some of us maybe have like allergic reaction to certain foods, or, you just don't eat. So if you have, dietary restrictions, if you could just let us know ahead of time, I can make arrangements accordingly. So if you cannot, eat certain foods, it would be just, I'll try to do what we can do. So thank you.
Thanks, Takako. Okay, well, that brings us to 4 o'clock. So we're gonna sign off, and it was nice seeing all your faces today.
Thank you
you.
very much. It was
Thanks
very
for
good.